Okay, so there we go. There's the black work all done. We've put those in, and then we've done them onto the excuse me, onto the actual tail fins as well. Now I'm not going to put the tail fins on yet, purely because of getting the wash on there and things like that. It'll be easier to do it afterwards. But we've unmasked it and gone round and checked it all over, and we're all happy with how that is now. Now the thing is, because it is olive drab, it is pretty much a boring colour, and it does tend to look very bricky, but hopefully we've broken it up a little bit. At the moment, because it's very glossy, because obviously we've used the extra acrylic paints and they're gloss based, it does look a little bit shiny, but I think once it's dulled down and been brought back a notch, it'll be okay. Certainly by the time it's had a wash, it will break it up. But what we want to do is really just sort of fade it down a little bit. Now there's a few ways to do that. The best way is, like we were saying, we go darker and lighter and things like that. What we're going to do is just lighten up a few little areas, okay? So what we're going to do is take some thinners, okay, into the colour cup, quite a bit of thinners. Okay, we're going to take a little bit of paint. We're just going to take a brush full of paint into the old colour cup, so it's almost like dirty thinners. Don't think we're going around doing it, because this is going to be an effect, and the best way to do effects is to thin the paint, and that way it blends a lot easier. Now we're going to take some XF2 flat white, and we're almost out of this, which is quite handy because that means I can pinch it straight out of here. So we're taking just a bit on the brush into here, just to lighten up this colour. Now it does look very light, okay, but by the time we've sprayed this on, hopefully it'll dull it down. Now it should start to go sort of a browny chocolatey colour as well. Now avoid those areas obviously where you've done with okay, now if it's looking very coming out quite strong, add a little bit more thinners to it. Because as I say, we want it to sort of almost wash on rather than spray on. So we just get rid of that. Then all we're going to do, literally, centres of panels again. I'm just going to work our way around the model. And all we're trying to do is just literally lighten it up, break it up. As we go round. Now the thing is, as I say, it's a sort of a bleaching effect, but I hope you can probably see it just on that, the wing there. It just sort of lightens it up. So just centre the panels. So this is just like a bleaching effect. Okay. We're just literally just trying to put it all back just a little bit. Okay, then once you put it down, just like that, what I tend to do is just give a quick blow over everywhere, and it'll just sort of help blend it in. But say you catch it in the light, you can see it's a lot flatter, kills it down, and just gives us a more dirty look to it. Then what you can do is obviously pop over this again and literally go round with a darker colour around your panel lines. And each time you're sort of going around and you're layering it all up and everything, you're actually find you're sort of giving a slightly better paint effect, because you're just changing the tones all over it and everything else. But there we go, it just sort of brings it down, just sort of kills it down a little bit, makes it a lot more flatter and everything else just like that. So we're just going to run around the cockpit up here. Pick out some areas. So it's pretty much a very much a random thing. But if you saw me do the other builds, you'll notice I do it just to literally get going and blending them. There we go. It really, really knocks it back and changes it quite a bit. Okay, then as I say, go back again, put your original colour in and just pop round some areas and perhaps deepen it up and stuff like that, and that way you get a real mottled paint colour, because obviously in reality it's going to get different types of wear and tear, it is going to have touch-ups, it is going to have this, it is going to have that, so it's just a way of really bringing it to life and making it look a lot better, certainly for big block colours. Obviously when the wash is on there as well, it give it a lot more depth, because obviously the panel lines will then pop through and look a lot sharper. With something like this, you could go as far as using almost black. I wouldn't use total black on the panel line washes because I tend to find they're too stark, but certainly to really liven it up, dark dirt wash with a little bit of black added to it will probably bring it up. Dark dirt for the underside will probably be fine, but there again, doing it over a flat coat or a satin finish, the wash will stick, it'll get caught in the texture and give it a lot more weathered look to it. But hopefully you can see now what we're trying to achieve with this, just by knocking it down, make it look a little bit older, but as I say, pop around, put a few new panels in it, whatever you want to do. Artistic license is the key on this one. Right, all the paintwork's completely dry. We've put the tail planes on, pretty straightforward, just a bit of glue. Okay, so what we've actually got now is a situation where we can actually get the decals on. Now, to be honest, there isn't that many of them, and I've got them all just down here, just slightly out of shot. I've already cut them out, and I've cut off all the numbers because there isn't many to really worry about. Normally, perhaps if you've got lots, it's best to leave the numbers on or do them as you go, but with these, as I said, it's pretty straightforward. Now, we've covered doing decals loads and loads of times, but we'll have a quick run through again. Basically, over at the back here I've got some warm water. We're going to use some micro set or sol. I'm just going to use some set for the moment. This softens the decal, helps it go down. The sol, if you're using the Micro Industries one, is the one that makes it shrink on and lock on everything else. A little trick you can do is use acrylic thinners, does the same thing. Just be careful, for God's sake, don't touch them once they've gone on. So anyway, if I just show you a few, what I tend to do, we have them like this. We grab our spring-loaded clamps, just because it makes it easy to hold, just holds itself like that. Okay, face down in some warm water, just warm, not hot but not cold. Cold means it takes forever to go through and to get happen. If it's too hot, sometimes they can actually stretch, the actual decals get very hot. So basically, as soon as your paper goes all black, just like that, we take it out of the water, and we just stand it, we show it in shot there, just like that, just for a minute. Now what we do, we take our micro set, this is the blue one, take our brush, okay, confirm the position with your instructions. So I always orientate the model the same way as the instructions are, okay? Look for panel lines and things like that of how it's actually going to be, or where it's going to be. So we're just looking down here. I know I've got the activator, I know it's probably just to the outside of that. What we do, we just grab some on a brush like this and just paint it in the area. Come up to our decal, just give it a quick slip test. If it slides on the paper, it's great. Wet your fingers first, and what it does, the grease on your fingers that stops it sticking. Okay, we go over to the area and we just slide it out. Like so. Now we're just going to look carefully down. We're making sure we can see how it actually goes on and where it goes on and things like that. Okay, and we're just going to line it up with the front line just like that. Okay, once we're happy it's in position, cotton bud just into some water, just wet it, get rid of the furry end, okay, and we just rub it on a bit of kitchen towel to take most of the water off. Okay, then all we're going to do is rub this right the way over and squish all the fluid out from the underside. Okay, then with the dry side, just mop up any excess fluid we've got anywhere, just over it like that. Okay, now the lid on the brush, and we're just going to paint the top of the decal just to soften it in place as it goes on. Now if you're happy with it and everything in the position, leave it alone, we'll move on to the next one and work through. Then what we do, once you're all happy that they're all okay, you can come back, have a look at the decal, and there's a few little tricks which I'll show you once I've got all the others on, and then we can lock them down, and what I will do is we'll give them a coat of acrylic paint this time just to make sure they're well down. So I'm going to get the rest of those on. At the same time, just as whilst I'm finishing off those, we've got the wheels and we stuck the two halves together. They can be drying then because they can be sanded because there is a bit of a seam around there. Same thing goes with the exhaust, because in a moment we're going to be spraying them, so we're going to clean all those up. And obviously the Bombay doors. Now the Bombay doors, we're going to have this in the open configuration, so the doors, when it's like that, actually slide up the side and they sit up here. So what's going to happen once these are actually cleaned up, they're going to sit something like this, because they're sort of a roller blind door setup, so they actually go up the side like this. So it'll look like when it's on the ground it's going to be armed, and crews can get to the weapon system and things like that. So that's the plan with that one. So at the moment I'm going to get on and get it decal, get all those down, everything else, clean up those bits, and we can come back and do some little things with the decals and everything else. The reason we're doing it all now is so we can weather it up, because we can weather the decals at the same time as we weather absolutely everything else. Right, the actual decals themselves have been on for around about 20 minutes, half an hour now. Okay, so you get an indication of how they're settling down. And what we mean by settle down is we want them to go completely sort of stuck to the plastic, to the paintwork, so you don't get any silvering. Now, silvering is literally just caused by the clear areas on the actual decal itself, the carrier film. Okay, what can happen is you get air bubbles trapped underneath, and all that happens is that little air bubble area, the carrier film, it just reflects it round, and it's called silvering, and it looks really, really nasty. So all we're going to do is have a general look round it, and we're looking for massive, obvious bits of silvering. Now normally you're going to get it in things like numbers, registrations, especially on this Y, but using the technique as we've done it, where we've put the set down first, the decals, to be honest, are very good and they've gone on quite nicely. Also, it helped that my paintwork is quite glossy. What you can do is gloss it first, but because the paint we used was gloss based, it sort of got rid of that need for it. So we've got a couple of things we want to do. First of all, you could probably get away with giving it a coat of something like an acrylic thinner. X28 is brilliant for it. What that'll do is sort of soften the decal and stick it down really, really well. But the only thing I want to do first, if we just bring you in just a second, you can see what we want to do is things like the panel lines running through, we want them to go right in. Now, as I said, you could use plenty of decal softener and get that to go in, but what we're going to do is just take a knife, okay, lay it into the actual panel line itself, and very slowly just drag it down the length of the panel line, and hopefully it will follow the panel line through. Now just make sure you've got a sharp blade in this. If you don't use a sharp blade, you're going to tear it and it's going to wrinkle up. Also keep it a very shallow angle, okay? Don't come in too tall because you're going to drag it across, if you know what I mean. Okay, but that's that one on. Then what we can do with a nice clean brush, clean thinners, and say this is just acrylic X28 thinners, we can go around and put it on. What also it will do is it will help the actual lessen the silvering effect, if you like, by running down across those. So hopefully it'll make it absorb, stick down very, very well. The other thing as well, you can't really see it too much on this, but you might be able to see a little bit of silvering in the actual panel lines themselves. So there again, taking a blade into the panel line itself, very slowly drag it right the way through everywhere. Okay, especially where you've got writing and things like that. So what we got is another one down here, but just take your time and go slowly, because the thing is, if you go too quick and you end up with a decal wrinkling up on you or going bad, then you can have all types of problems. So we're just going to pop it along this one as well, this fire extinguisher access point. There's another panel there. Again, back in, okay, and then just liberally everywhere, all over that entire area. Okay, and then that way what will happen is, as I said, it will travel along, it will get underneath everywhere, and it will stop that silvering, because it's literally going to suck the decal straight onto the paintwork. And it's a nice tip to do, because all too often, especially in one's back here, numbers, I must admit, I'm quite impressed with these because they've gone on better than I thought. I actually thought we'd have trouble. But what can happen is, especially on things like letterings and things like this, when you're dealing over olive drab or darker colours, certainly silvering can be a real problem, but somehow we've managed to avoid it. So all we're going to do, taking that thinners, going around and just down here with this roundel right the way over, we're just going to put them on over. Now if you do notice little blemishes on your paintwork as well, what you can actually do is just put some thinners right the way over the top of it, and it will help those go away. Alright, so all we're going to do is literally pop around the entire model itself and say drop of this, and it really will help. Then what we're going to do is literally leave this for a good few hours to go off. We're going to do just the same on this other panel line here. But say just take your time with it, don't rush this, because if you do and you end up dragging your decal, it can be a real pain to try and fix it. Okay, just in there like that. And just be careful where you're holding your plane as well. You don't want to be grabbing it, because these decals will be really soft doing this. Okay, and when they're soft, as soon as they touch your hand or your fingers, it's going to be literally stick for its life. Okay, and there we go. So we're quite happy with how that is going, or gone. All right, so what we're going to do is just going to pop it over here and just keep it out of the way. Let's just move that water up out of the way. Being water, it's not your problem. Right, now, things like these little exhausts. Okay, now these little exhausts are going to be obviously go on the underside. Now we want them to be a metal finish, all right? So, but what we need to do is clean them out. So if you just take, if you've got a thin sanding stick, these are great, because these will go in between the details, because we've got these little raised details here. So this will sit in between the two. And without damaging the other areas, we can just wrap it around. So skinny sticks are great for doing this type of thing. And as I say, because you don't damage everything else. If you try and get in there with a normal sanding stick, you could end up with loads of trouble. Okay, so we're just going to clean all those up the same way. Exactly the same with the tyres. We're not going to worry too much about the tread. We're going to use quite a coarse grip as well. And all we're going to do is tear into it to make sure we've got a nice tyre. Okay, then what we'll do, obviously we'll flat spot this later on, so it looks like it's got some weight on it. So there's nothing worse when you see some aircraft, especially your bombers and that, where they did have low pressure tyres, and you look at them and they're sat on little pinpricks, it looks like. But if you take quite a coarse sanding stick to it, you can even them out quite nicely, like this. Okay, then once you've done it with a coarse sanding stick, just come along with a sanding sponge, and then going with, don't go across, go with it. You can just grind them in. Let's say all this will do is get rid of the marks out of the plastic that you've caused by your sanding stick. Okay, let's pop around the last bit. Now we've already done the centres, because we sprayed them up grey already. Okay, so they're all okay, both sides. So now we've got to do is paint the inside of the wheel. Now doing that, a quick little technique I can show you for painting wheels. First things first is a cocktail stick in the centre, because that really does help. Now if you put it in and you end up in the hole's too big, just card it back a little bit. Okay. And what will happen is it will go in and stick. We've got some way of controlling it. Okay, just like this. Right, taking some black paint. All we're going to do, we're going to have some black paint like this. Okay, and then in the thing, and then we're just going to take a empty paint pot, just upside down, just for mixing up. Okay, and then we're going to take a little bit of grey, just a tiniest bit of grey. And then what we're going to do is literally taking a nice thin brush, take a little bit of the grey, okay, into the paint just like that, then some of the black, okay, a little bit more black, and what that'll do is just take the edge off of it. Now with this one we got a nice groove running all the way round. But what you can do is, if you haven't got too much of a groove, if you take a little bit of thinners, add some thinners into your paint. Okay, then what you can do is literally, hand goes down on the table, you've got your other one on, you can literally just drag this round and let the capillary action do 90% of the work. And when we say capillary action, we're just literally on about paint going in the grooves. And if you hold it downwards and just drag it round, you'll notice it will just go in just like that. Okay, and that does that bit. We'll do the inside, just doing it backwards really taking our time. Normally you do it a little bit slower than this, but to be honest I'm rushing this so I don't bore you all to death. Okay, but say let the capillary flow all the way around. You're just sort of tapping it in. When you've got it in, we're just going to take a bit more black paint, mix that in, and again. Okay, and then same thing, we're just going to start then from the side wall. So we're sort of filling in that gap between the tyre and the wall, and the hub of the wheel. And you'll notice what will happen is the area where the tyre is meets the hub, because as thin as in there, it just zips to it. You don't have to worry too much, and then just keep a little bit more black. We can just paint the tyre itself. As I say, there are masks for this that come in the kit, but by the time I've masked all this up, I can paint it by hand. And to be honest, you can vary the colour and how it is. And then obviously we'll come along with some pastels at the end just to weather this up a little bit. But there we go, there's our tyre done. Then we just got to do the inside bits exactly the same. Okay, and just keep it wet. As soon as it starts to dry, you can get dragging with acrylics. Okay. Just pop it right around in there, that's real. Got a tiny bit of drag. When you've got a bit of drag, just add more paint to your brush and just tap it over the top like a blob. And there we go. There's our wheel, all done. So we can lighten that. When it dries, it'll dry a lot lighter, but it's a perfect circumference with that, with no problems. Alright then, so we've moved on a little bit on this one, as in it's all completely dried off. This is the next day, so really we can now touch the decals and we can have a look round and see how they are and everything else. And I think if you take a close look down here in this decal down here, you can see the panel lines now running right the way through, no problem at all. We've got no silvering, and that's really what that was about. It takes a little bit of time, a little bit of patience just to leave it, but it does give you a very nice effect. And even round here, the camera locks in, you see you can see the light reflecting obviously off of the decal itself. The carrier film makes it that little bit glossy, but we've got no silvering in there at all. And that's really what we were trying to get rid of, was to stop that silvering coming through. So, a couple of things we've done. First of all, we've got the turbochargers, the intercoolers, which go on the bottom of the engines. Now these things here, if we bring you in a touch, this is a simple mix of these little metals. Okay, now these are the metal colours done by Guns. These are they're like a lacquer based acrylic. And the thing is, when you put them on, they go as dusty as hell and look dead flat, and you think that's not metal. Okay, and then give them a rub and you can polish them, and that's a great thing with these colours, they're actually polishable. So what I did was I took some iron and some copper, 50-50 mix, just did it in the top colour here and then painted them over. It's pretty straightforward. And then what we could do, you can just come along and just rub them with your finger, and you can actually buff them up, and they do bring up a very nice little metal effect to it, and it's got that nice sort of steel colour that we were trying to get. So I'm very happy with the way those have come out, and those in a moment we can come along and pop them in, and they're just going to come along and be seated underneath these engines, just down in there and like that, and then obviously we can weather them out and everything else. Now one little thing I also did at the same time was paint all the undercarriage silver. Now for this, all I actually used was a metallic grey silver, just to give them that sort of worn and more dirty look to the thing. Also, we went around and we gave a bit of a wash to the wheels. Now, by giving them a wash, all it does is really give them a bit more of a grimy look. So, oh, he's not throwing it around all over the place. So as you can see with these, it just takes off that edge of being bright grey and gives a more grubby look. So when we come in with the actual wheel itself, and I had a feeling these were going to be a little bit tight. So what we're going to do is open up these holes just a little fraction. So it's just a bit of a pin vise with an oversized pin, and then hopefully those will go through and push in a little bit more. But there we go, that's the wheels on, but it just gives them more of a grubby look. But that's those painted up, we'll get those sorted out properly. The other thing we've actually done as well, we've got the ball turret, just like this. We've unmasked it. There again, the actual holder is painted silver. Now this, as we spoke about before, will go one of the last things in, it will just pop in, but now it's unmasked, it's looking the business, and obviously we've got to put the guns in, but they're all last minute things, but just takes care of that. So now that this is all looking pretty much there, what we need to do is knock it down and give it a bit of a dull look. Now the only thing I did do, you might see here, we've got these little black marks up there. So what we want to do is just slightly rub them out. So what we're going to use is one of the polishing sponges, okay, and we're just going to come in and just give this a very, very light rub all the way over. Now what it will do, it will polish it up just a little bit and can make it a little bit more shiny. But what we're hoping to do is just be able to lightly sand it off. So we're just going to come in with a very light, we're not pushing down here, we're not trying to cut through this, but what it actually is, it's a fingerprint that I've put on. So we're trying to fade it down and then we'll weather it out, but we don't want to fade and go through it. What I might be able to do is just shim a knife across it as well. So it's very careful as you do this. Then what we're going to do, we're going to post weather this, and we'll just post weather it over the top, and we'll turn it into a little bit of scratching. But there we go, that roughly gets it. It's lightened up the patch a little bit, but what we'll do is, as I say, we'll go in there and take care of it. Now, before we want to get on the weathering, we want to kill everything completely down. The one I like to use is extra acrylics flat varnish. The only reason I like to use this stuff is, if you get it right, it gives a totally dead flat effect to it. If you get it wrong, you can end up with little white specks everywhere, and you get that sort of real dusty look to it, which you certainly don't want on an aircraft, because they're always looking a little bit more glossy than dusty, but they do look flat. So what I do is, I'll show you now, it's just literally give this a good shake right the way over. Okay, let it stand just for a minute. Okay, so whilst that's standing, we're just going to move these other bits out of the way. If you've got any clear parts, make sure they're clear, and everything else. We'll just make a bit of room under here. Okay, check our airbrush. So it has been standing all night, so I'm going to do a tiny bit of acrylic thinners in the bottom. We unscrew the back, we're just going to retract and let go of the needle a few times. That'll just, if there's anything dried in the body, it just gets it moving without any force on the trigger that could end up with problems. Okay, so we just go like that, put the back in. To be honest, just down out of shot, you can see down behind you is where the extractor is. So I'm just blowing that out. Okay. Then what we're going to do, everything maximum air pressure, unscrew the top. Now make sure you've got no bits fall down in there. Okay, so if you have, grab yourself a cloth and get rid of any build up lumps and nasties that can gather around here. Now very slowly pour this. Now this is very, very thick. Okay, that's in. Now by pouring it slowly, you can see if any lumps go in there. We've got lumps. Okay, in with our thinners, and we're just going to add probably 15% thinners into that. Now we'll need a clean brush to give this a mix up. He said, trying to find a clean brush. There's a clean brush. Not that much of a clean brush. If we just do it outside in the water. There was something on it, I could smell it. I think it's a whole bit of pigment. There we go, it's off. So then all we do is mix the two up in the colour cup. Now the secret with all flat coats is to make sure they've had a good mix. You don't want them being too thick. Okay. Let's leave that away a sec. Now we'll just check our flow over here. You can literally hear it, but if you squirt it, like I'm squirting off towards the extractor, but you can see what's coming out. Okay, looks okay to me. So what we're going to do, we'll just flip this guy over, and we're just going to mist on just a light coat. But as I say, air pressure is actually set at about 30 psi. But what you want to do is always layer it down. We've done a couple of passes, we've got this all this silvering down here. Cut into air, dry it back. Couple of passes, drying it back. Because I don't want it to build up, I want it to go in there and hide those areas. So what we're trying to do is build up a layer between the decal and the surrounding area, so it all just blends in. Drying down again. Okay, that's the other side done, and then all we're going to do is literally passes, running over. And really just keep an eye on it. You want it to look flat. Done. Cut into air, dry it down so we can have a look. We've run out of our first batch, but we need to hold it. So all we're going to do is let that dry off. But as you can probably hopefully see now, that decal on the front is pretty much all blended in now. And that's what we wanted to do. So that takes care of that. Okay, so I'm going to then carry on, reflack the rest of this, let it totally dry for half an hour, come back, we can get it unmasked then, and start to really bring it together, get some more weathering on there and things like that. So okay, now that's done, we can let that dry off for about half an hour, okay, and then we can go around and start putting some of the other parts onto it, get it unmasked, and we can put some other weathering on. We're putting in some post shading, some little streaks, things like that, a little bit of pastels, and then that way it'll really bring it to life.